Hello there, Dave here. We're studying through Genesis to Revelation, just kind of trying to get an overview of the entire book of all 66 books of the Bible. I'm in 1 Kings now, so that's good. Solomon is made king. Now, not before Adonijah tries to bid for the throne and then loses because David's like, no, that's not going to happen. So Nathan and Bathsheba are called in. They go in to intercede for Solomon. And on Solomon's behalf, Solomon is made king. And then Solomon does have mercy on Adonijah. And then, of course, Adonijah ends up messing that up, but that's okay. Solomon is told by David in chapter 2 to clean up house. You know, basically David's final words to Solomon are, all those people that caused me trouble while I was king, you need to take care of. Get rid of them. Solomon secures his throne at that point. And in chapter 3, he prays, and God says, I will give you anything you want. And he says, I want wisdom. And that was a very good idea. Of course, he ends up, losing his mind and screwing up things by the end of his career as king, anyhow. But that's the way it is. Sometimes you get good wisdom, and he wrote a lot of Psalms, a lot of Proverbs, the Song of Solomon. There's so much that he gave us in the Old Testament that God spoke through him to give us the words of wisdom in Proverbs. At any rate, there's this whole story in the second half of chapter 3 with the woman and the child that's kind of grisly, but it tells you what life was like for people back then and what life is like for people now. God's very real. He always tells real stories using real people that lived and teaches us real things and real life lessons through those. Chapter 4, Solomon's administration, talking about his cabinet, his governors, how he lived, his daily provision, and of course more on what he did with his wisdom. And then chapter 5, preparations for building the temple, Solomon's message to Hiram of Tyre, and Hiram's reply, and talks about all of the people that Solomon used to build not just the temple, but also his own palace. And in chapter 6, the construction of the temple begins, tells us all the dimensions of the temple and all of that, and Solomon's building. Chapter 7, again, Solomon's palace and temple furnishings. Solomon builds his house and how beautiful it becomes. He doesn't spend quite as much time on the temple as he should at that point, but how it works. The temple furnishings come in and how he arranges all that. So it's just the first 7 chapters of 1 Kings. Covers so much. And you obviously want to look into all the detail of that. There's a great book by Nancy Missler that talks about the temple of Israel, The Way of Agape, her series on that, and just how the temple itself is sort of a structure that teaches us about ourselves, our heart, our soul, our mind, our strength, all of the things that the temple goes into. And of course, the temple is a larger construction of the tabernacle, because the tabernacle is what they've been using, the Levites have been using up to that point to do their sacrifices and to worship God and all that. And now the temple is being built so that they have an outer court for the Gentiles, kind of give them a place to go, and then give them a place to obviously worship the giant veil between the Holy of Holies and that is going to be torn, of course, when Jesus dies on the cross for our sins later on in the New Testament. However, it's important for us to continue studying the Word. It's important for us to continue searching and seeking God's help in all the things that we're learning and growing on as we study. So hopefully that is a help. We'll get into more as Solomon dedicates the temple, and then we get into more of his life, and then as it goes into Kings, it's sort of like a Game of Thrones kind of thing. Kings are assassinating each other. This one's it's crazy. Anyway, God bless. Keep studying the Word of Truth. I hope you have a great day.